Happening, folks. The Exorcism is a 2024 American supernatural horror film starring Russell Crowe. It is not related in any way to Russell's 2023 American supernatural horror film, The Pope's Exorcist, and its connections to any other possession films are far too freaking confusing for me to even want to risk boring you with. So let's just go. Well, I suppose if nothing else ends up scaring us about this movie, at least there's that. If you don't get that joke, that is a good thing. You hang on to your innocence, darling. Okay, this movie opens with a prologue of an actor doing a walkthrough on a soundstage, presumably rehearsing a scene. And apparently the scene he's rehearsing is that of an exorcist going into a little girl's room to exorcise a demon. And as a die-hard possession movie fan, that's very original by modern standards. I mean, 95% of possession films copy this exact scene from 1973's The Exorcist, but in this movie, he's only rehearsing the scene. And then, rather unexpectedly, I might add, the demon, whose name is Moloch, kills the actor to death. Oh, before we go any further, I should mention, I've had to brighten this image so you guys are able to watch along with me. This is what it actually looks like, the way they filmed it. And the actual first act kicks off in New York City, methinks. Oh hey, that's that little squirt from one of the Jurassic Park movies I don't acknowledge. Simpkins? Happening, folks. Editing Johnny here from the future. Johnny Recaps didn't know Jurassic Squirt is actually Ty Simpkins' sister because he didn't know Ty Simpkins had a sister. About 10 minutes from now, your time, when he looks into it and realizes Ty's sister's name is Ryan, he gets even more confused, and you might pick up on that confusion going forward. Enjoy the rest of the recap either way, and thank you for choosing Johnny Recaps. He's obviously had his hair done since that joke of an Insidious revamping. So Jurassic Squirt is visiting Russell Crowe, and it seems there's a bit of tension between them, which is just refreshing, you know? Before I threw this on, I was thinking, you know what would make this movie really amazing? Have a teenager who's clearly not starving, and whose parents had both the money and the foresight to send their teenager to a private school, essentially setting them up for the rest of their lives, and have that same teenager be angry and dismissive and flat out disrespectful towards the parent who is giving them everything in life. I mean, yeah, it is kind of hard to swallow, especially for those of us in the audience who've had to work our asses off our whole lives just to keep our heads above water. And yes, they have used this exact weak, lazy character trope in like 92% of horror movies made in the last decade or so, and nobody likes them. Ever. But fuck it. Let's just do it again. Nobody in the audience is going to be able to relate to it or enjoy it, but why would that matter? What the hell has the audience got to do with the way these Hollywood write movies nowadays? You know what? They're probably writing their truth. To hell with all this 20th century thinking. Characters in movies don't have to be relatable or not annoying anymore. And you know what? If you think that's wrong in 2024, you are probably racist. I'm all better now, and that won't happen again in this video. So, Jurassic Squirt's been kicked out of ski, but Russell Crowe has convinced this ski to let Jurassic come back next semester. And Jurassic Squirt is angry about that too, and you know what? I say, just right. Imagine your dad trying to help you undo the results of your behavioral problems. What a dick. And Russell's randomly popped into a confessional. I don't know if this is his life or the movie, but apparently it's been 40 years since his last confession because he's not religious anymore. He's upset because he used to have a drink and a drug problem, which he developed when his wife got sick with cancer. Now, I've never been married myself, but I would say that's probably one of the acceptable reasons to develop a dependency problem. Another one might be like movies like this. And now he's talking about being offered a big role in a movie, which he got because the previous actor died. In that prologue scene we watched earlier on, this is starting to make sense now. And he thinks if he takes the job, it might make him stronger as a person, and it might make his daughter A second. Ryan. Does that mean daughter in the traditional sense or in the we're all pretending things now so we don't lose our jobs sense? And in the very next scene, while he's going through his lines and talking about this new big role, Jurassic Squirt is laughing at him and talking down to him like he's some kind of dick. And she talks to him like he's a dick while she's in his house, sitting at his table, eating from the mountain of Chinese food he's bought for her. And in return for her appreciation, Russell explains the project is very important to him. And if I'd have acted that way towards any of my elders at that age, I'd have received a closed fist to the nose and cheek in return for my appreciation. But the times they are changing. So the next day, Russell's doing a read-through with one of the other characters, and Jurassic Squirt is watching on because not only is Russell clothed her and fed her and put her into private school and had her private school expulsion reversed while he was ordering her a boatload of sweet and sour pork with dumplings, he's also given her a high-paying Hollywood job as his personal assistant. I know. What a dick. I mean, if I was Jurassic Squirt, I would be fuming. Worse than those dinosaurs on that volcano island. These jokes don't work anymore because that's not him. So Russell keeps messing up his acting over and over because he's still getting over all his problems. And he's very comfortable telling everybody how his problems are messing up his acting. So the director has to step in. That's Adam Goldberg. He's been in a zillion movies. Actually, he starred alongside Russell Crowe like 20 years ago in A Beautiful Mind when Russ nabbed his Oscar. So Adam Goldberg gets him talking about his childhood instead, and somehow he knew Russell was an altar boy as a child, and that seems to work, I think. And I suppose we can assume it did work because the next scene is a party with the entire cast and crew, and Russell got invited. It would appear Russell is having a sit-down at the party with Captain Overrated. I wholeheartedly believe the only reason Sam Worthington's a Hollywood name is because his name sounds very Hollywood. Starring as Jake Sully, a paralyzed man who regains his mobility by transporting his consciousness into the artificially grown body of a 13-foot-tall blue alien, Sam Worthington. Sam Worthington. Sam Worthington. Wouldn't sound the same at all if they said, starring Archibald Garfinkel. Archibald Garfinkel as Jake's son. I don't even know his daughter's character name. Lee. It's Lee. I prefer Jurassic, but I'm a team player when YouTube is forcing me to be. The next day, on the first day of shooting, I think, while Russell's getting his hair done, Lee and Blake hang out, and Blake takes her on a little tour of the set. And while they are walking and talking, Lee explains why she was expelled. You guys are not going to believe this. This team of 12 professional Hollywood writers had this already wildly interesting dynamic character get angry at her school principal for being homophobic. Dear Hollywood writers, none of us actually give a toss about people's sexual preferences, and your obsession with the subject is gross and boring. And why not put a tenth of the effort into learning how to write a proper story, you asshole? Then Russell hangs out with David Hyde Pierce. Remember how awesome he was as Niles in Frasier back when shows were funny and you could make fun of all of our differences as human beings without going to jail? Niles is serving as a consultant to the priesthood on set, so he's helping the director keep the priesty aspects of the story as authentic as possible. Hopefully not fully authentic. That could be a whole other kind of horror story. This is confusing me a little bit. Every so often, Russell drifts off into these flashbacky sort of moments, and they feature a young Asian fella, I think. And now Russell's nose has started bleeding, maybe because he's been staring at himself in the mirror for too long. This is commonly known in the industry as Hollywood syndrome. Sorry, Hollywood syndrome number 41. And then back in the darkest apartment in New York State, as a reminder, this is what it looks like without my gain cranked up. Russell's starting to drift off into space kind of frequently now. It feels like every time this movie tries to scare you, Well, it can't, because despite having 12 professional Hollywood writers, the actual writing is kind of on par with your typical after-school special. Keep expecting the Wonder Twins to pop out any second to remind me not to jaywalk. What was I talking? Oh, yes, right. So to compensate for the writing not actually being scary, they make everything go really quiet for about 30 seconds so they can blast this sound into your ears unexpectedly. Obviously, for some people, this can jar your nervous system into believing you've just been scared even though you've only been startled. It engages the body and not the mind, which is fine if it's one of the tools in your toolbox. But in a nutshell, my beef with most of James Wan's movies lies in the fact he relies far too heavily on this effect for most of his scares.
And that's why I hate him.
Something else unusual when this movie is trying to startle you, they keep flashing these images up on the screen, but it's impossible to see them because they're only up for a single frame. So all of a sudden, dad and daughter are best friends. Did I miss a scene while I've been talking to you fine folks? Be right back. Nope, maybe it is an editing issue. We did not miss any sort of a reconciliation scene. Back on the set again, and Russell's having the same problems acting again, and it is starting to feel a tad deja vu-ish. He sucks at delivering the lines, the director gets angry and whispers something to him. Oh, only this time, a light falls from the ceiling and nearly hits the director as he's walking away. I think they're trying to imply Russell just did that with his mind, but there's zero connective tissue leading us to believe that up until now. He's just been kind of spaced out, which is probably very demanding for an Oscar-winning actor. Meanwhile, back in the cheery apartment, why does Russell have a fridge full of beer? He's a recovering addict. Either he bought it or it's his 16-year-old daughter's. Imagine if that's what it was. You know how she hates him for seemingly no reason? Now that would be wickedness. Stuffing your recovering addict father's fridge full of booze? Then, as he's going through his script, he realizes the entire thing has been scribbled over, only he doesn't remember doing any of it. And again, it keeps flashing back to this kid. What am I missing? Then he gets in trouble again, only this time it's for going into his daughter's room so he can also do her laundry. Leading men in movies don't exist anymore. But they do in this house. Ow. Oh, was that a funny angle? 5 points to anybody in the comment section that gets that reference. Then in this scene, they appear to be best friends again, and they go through his lines while she passes comments on the patriarchy. And while they're working on the lines, Russell gets lightheaded, which is exactly what happens to me when I hear the patriarchy bullshit. Especially when I still don't know if Ryan is a boy or a girl. Holy fuck, this is confusing. Then Russell wanders off in another daze, only this time he's in a daze in a different part of the house. And that slight variation in the scenery absolutely makes up for this film's utter lack of scares or intrigue up until now. You can totally hear them in the writing room. So what are we gonna do next, Brock? Maybe we should have him get spaced out again. But we just did that 11 minutes ago. Yeah, upstairs. You've got a real knack for this. Look what they just tried to pull on us. Russell must have the same agent as Steven Seagal. Check out the shape of the stand-in they used for the shower scene. Remember I mentioned there's nothing scary about any of this up until this point? If you pause on the daughter's face, even the actors can't fake it. Then he's back in the shower again, only this time his face is in the shot and he's got a very different shape to him now. So they've thrown in a $20 special effect now to imply, I suppose he is actually possessed. The effect also implies they didn't waste any of their budget on the special effects. Look folks, I am becoming possessed. Back in the studio, my deja vu is going to erupt all over my camera lens because they are watching the dailies and the director is complaining about his acting again. And with Russell not being there to defend himself, Jurassic has to defend, not Jurassic, Lee. And after she's done defending him, even though she despises him, she sits down with Niles, who tells her he's also a psychiatrist. Now, if this or any other plot development in this movie gets you thinking This all sounds a lot like the original Exorcist. Just leave it alone. Trust me, it's not worth reading up on. I'm your friend. I want what's best for you. And then we see Russell do that thing people sometimes do in movies when they have somebody neck an entire bottle of Jack Daniels and then just go about their business as if it was Red Bull. And when young Lee gets home, she finds her daddy in her room all covered in blood and stinking like alcohol, and he's acting all spooky. But it isn't working because you can't be spooky by acting spooky. And when Lee threatens to leave, Russell shuts the door with his beautiful mind. Which I suppose means he is possessed now, or magical. You know what? It would be super cool if he was actually imagining all of this door slamming stuff and everything, like in A Beautiful Mind. Imagine the reality. They hard cut to the daughter's POV, and he's passed out on the couch, face down, track pants around his ankles, power snoring and farting. And the next day in his trailer, they are best friends again, and he says, I don't even know what happened the other night. What happened the other night? Now, if you're a logical sort of person, or maybe my head is completely messed up, but you might think to yourself, if he's saying he doesn't remember what happened the other night, and in fact, he goes on to ask her what happened the other night, wouldn't it stand to reason he wouldn't have asked her about it in the first place because he has no memory of it? So she heads in to see Niles, this time in his church, and she's got her new pal Blake with her. Might be a little early for that in the friendship, seeing as she's going to consult a priest psychiatrist about her father's rapidly deteriorating mental health. That sounds a bit private to me. Then again, maybe it's one of the scenes where she totally hates him. You just never really know. And would you believe it, my friends, in an exorcism movie, she's recorded Russell speaking Latin, and would you also believe Niles is able to translate the Latin? And after the youngins leave, Niles gets stuck into his big old book of exorcisms for dummies 101, and his face goes very, very worried looking, and that has me very, very worried about what might happen. Very worried about what's going to happen to these characters. And that has me very, very worried about what's going to happen to these characters. And that has me very worried about what's going to happen to these characters. And that has me very worried about what's going to happen to these characters I've grown to love. And that has me very worried about what's going to happen to these characters I have grown to love. There's that kid again. He's almost like Ezra Miller before everybody found out he's a dirt. Back on the set again, and Russell can't act again, and this time they're filming the money shot the previous actor died rehearsing. But no matter how hard he tries, he can't seem to get his acting shit together. There's been no escalation to the acting issues. It's not getting progressively worse. He's not acting any differently. It's basically been the same scene repeated every single time he's on camera, or at least it has been up until right now when we enter the contortion phase of the possession movie. He does the bendy body bit and then he headbutts the table a bunch of times, and I'm guessing the bendy stuff might have been done by the body double. So they give the lead role to Sam Worthington. He can't act, and you'll forget his face 3 seconds after he's left the room, but you'll never forget how good his name sounds coming through this Shure SM7B microphone.
Sam Worthington.
And before Sam Worthington's even able to throw his own congratulatory party, Russell leaps through the mirror and does him in. Now, I am not sure if that really happened or if it's some kind of artistic whatever. Now, back in the teenager's bedroom, the girls are consoling each other after learning about the death of
Sam Worthington.
And then they start making out. To repeat, and then they start making out. Setting aside the fact that it's supposed to be a 16-year-old girl for a moment, since when do grief and boners go together? Then Russell finally goes full possessed, and he says something to his daughter I'm not even going to repeat because, well, you can't even imagine how confused I have been for half of this video, given I still don't know if this is a boy or a girl I am making fun of. After he beats everybody up and says horrible, horrible things to the girls, he leaps out the window from several floors up. I'm telling you, if they'd have taken the beautiful mind approach with this entire movie, it would have been fascinating. And my blood pressure would have been way lower than it is right now, I'm betting. So Niles tells her he's going to sort everything out, and we're gonna pretend he didn't just fly out of a 4-story window backwards. Yeah, our little secret. What do they actually expect us to think just happened, though? Like, he flew. He was flying. Lee tells Niles she knows exactly where Russell's gone, so they go there, and for reasons I am not smart enough to pick up on, Lee's girlfriend Blake comes along. It was weird earlier when Lee brought Blake along to speak to the priest, but the only thing more messed up than taking your girlfriend to your dad's exorcism for date night is accepting the invitation to go to your girlfriend's dad's exorcism for fucking date night. Remind me sometime to tell you guys my story from high school when I picked up the hottest, most mysterious girl in the whole school to find out she only agreed to go out with me so she could take me to her church that Friday because she thought I needed help. Now, when Lee told Niles she knew where Russell was going, she was talking about the bedroom set on the soundstage at the studio. I don't have a clue why he went there, and I definitely can't explain how she instinctively knew that's where he was going. There is zero connection between him and this place as far as this story has told us. When they get there, the priest and Blake, the only two people in the group that believe in God, go all possessed, like immediately, but somehow Lee is okay. And she starts reading from a Bible, even though she doesn't believe in God. Then Niles and Blake snap right out of it, and they appear to be okay, and I don't care. Why the hell is the girlfriend there? It makes less sense than demonic possession. Niles tells the demon and Russell to take him instead. So it does. No fucking way. The kid he's been seeing this whole time is meant to be Russell Crowe when he was young. They cast this guy to play Russell Crowe. And then Russell, who hasn't been to confession for 40 years and who doesn't believe in God anymore and who was just possessed by this exact demon himself, reads a passage from the Bible too. And when that doesn't work, he stabs Niles in the head with a crucifix and says, "Serpent, be gone," which does seem a tad redundant given he's just murdered the priest who sacrificed himself to save him. Then the demon catches fire, and it starts screaming in pain, even though demons come from hell, and my mom told me there's lots of fire down there. And then Russell tells Lee he loves her. And that's the end of the movie. And if you enjoyed the movie, get in touch. I mean, email me if it's easier, because I think you and I have to have a talk. As always, my friends, thank you very much for helping me get through this one. I need to get the hell out of here now. Until next time, folks. It's me, Johnny, from that video you just watched, although I'm sure you know who I am, right? You should subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost anything, it's easy to do, and it makes creative people like myself who thrive on compliments feel all warm and fuzzy. And if you like that last video, click on this next video because it's just as amazing. Click on it.